Hello. Welcome to the ninth installment of Unfiltered, which is our interview series we've been doing with photographers here. My name is Will. I run social media for us here. And today we have Chona Kasinger coming into the chat. So we'll be asking her all about what she's been up to during quarantine. Just waiting for her to send the request to jump in here, and then we'll get started. So while I wait to hear from Chona and get the request to get in here, Chona is an internationally published photographer and writer, and she has had editorial clients such as the New York Times, Rolling Stone, Newsweek, and GQ. Oh, here she comes. And commercial clients, Converse, NBC, and Delta Airlines. And she should be coming in here.
Hi.
Hey, nice to see you.
Yeah. Hi. How's it going?
How's your day going? Is your day going well?
It is, yeah. It's getting a little windy here. There was a thunderstorm last night, but yeah, it's going great. Sunny, can't complain.
So you've told me already that you are in the woods.
Yeah.
Where in the woods are you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, it's my partner's birthday, so we kind of stuck away from the city, got away from the helicopters and, all that. We are just north of Walla Walla, which is eastern Washington. About 5 hours, so it's a bit of a trek from the city, but haven't really gotten to spend a lot of time out here outside of a brief stint for ESPN earlier this year. That was in February and it was snowing, so it's a lot warmer out now, so it's nice to kind of check out the area from a social distance, of course. But yeah, that's what we're out here for.
Cool. What's summer like in Washington? I've never been.
Oh man, well in Seattle on the west side of the state, it's beautiful. You really couldn't ask for like a kind of milder day to day. I feel like it's been a little rainy as of late, but yeah, I mean honestly it's glorious. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it is. It's really toasty in Philadelphia today, so
Yeah.
and very humid too. So let's jump into it. We got about 20 minutes to kill. So you told me you've been working on some baking recipes and you've been documenting it along the way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So, baking was always kind of like a stress coping mechanism for me. I feel like a lot of people could probably relate, but like I would find myself baking when I was on deadline. I'd like come home from a shoot and just like preheat the oven, sit at my kitchen table and just like plug away at the edits. And then, I feel like it was soothing to have like kind of smells coming out of the kitchen, because at this point I've made chocolate, like every version of chocolate chip cookie, but it's just kind of a ritual for me. And I put on like a podcast or some music or something and I bake. And I had a shoot for the Times. I think it was actually my first shoot in 2020. I went up to the bread lab in Burlington here, like about an hour and a half north of Washington, and I got to photograph the King Arthur School up there. And it was really, really amazing. It was bakers keep really crazy hours, they're like in the kitchens at 4 a.m, just starting on things. But went up there and I was really inspired. And it's really great when there's that like synergy, it's like an interest that I have already, and then getting to photograph it, like, getting paid to photograph it. And yeah, I came home and I like just like made my first starter. And I've been baking bread ever since. So I kind of got on the train a little bit before the shelter in place started. Of course, flour became really, really hard to come by. But yeah, I've been baking lots, taking photos. I just moved upstairs in our current apartment building, and it has the most glorious natural light. So that's been really, really fun to kind of explore.
So the school that you were shooting for the New York Times is a culinary school? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like a continuing education type thing. It's like through the Washington State University and the Bread Lab and King Arthur School. So yeah, on paper, like they offer what is it, like classes that like people could just pop into. You pay like, you know, $100, or if it's like an intensive sourdough thing where it's multiple days, you pay like, you know, 500 or something. But it's like a really great resource for people interested in baking. If you're like, you know, starting out, or if you're like already working in a bakery and you're just looking to kind of up your croissant making skills, yeah, it's a great resource. And I think a lot of people don't know about it. But yeah, right north of Seattle. And there's another campus on the, it's closer to you. What is it? It's like Burlington or Arlington or, I forget. Vermont. It's in Vermont. A
Sort of a little bit closer.
little bit closer to
Pretty
you.
far
Yeah.
north, yeah. Cool. And I saw on your Instagram you had a picture of a type of bread called, and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, Pandesal,
Oh yeah.
Pandesal. You were talking about how you were raised in the Philippines and it's a Filipino dish. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. I was born in the Philippines, and I moved to the suburbs of Seattle when I was 10. Um, So, yeah, I got to visit in December, and the holidays in the Philippines are an insane time. They actually start celebrating in September, if you could believe it. They love Santa. They love the whole culture of it. So I went and saw my family for the first time in many moons. Like, I mean, I think it was straight up like 12 years. And I had an assignment that I was on board for over there with Travel and Leisure, photographing this big like light carousel festival that they put on every year. So it was a bit of like work, but you know, mostly hanging out with family, and you know, I love travel. I miss it a lot. I did a lot of it last year, and yeah. So Pandesal was something that like you can just find it on the streets in the Philippines. People going around yelling Pandesal. Um, but yeah, I baked it for the first time, and it was really easy. And yeah, highly recommend, y'all.
All right, I'll have to check it out. Um, so you told me that you had photographed for an investigative piece on Chaz, which after doing a little research is really fascinating. So it's the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which has been renamed the Capitol Hill Organized Protest.
Yes,
Uh,
occupied protest.
oh, sorry. Which it just seems pretty kind of insane. So there's 6 blocks in Seattle that have been taken over essentially, and turned into a an organized protest. So what was that all about?
Oh man, I live like 2 blocks away from kind of the perimeter of it, at the end of Cal Anderson, which is the park where it's happening, and it's loud. The neighborhood's changed a lot. I've been living on Capitol Hill with my two dogs and my partner for 2 years now. We came from North Seattle before, over by Ravenna. It's over by the University of Washington. It's been a lot, you know, and my partner's continuing to work through all of this. He works at a coffee shop, he manages it. So, you know, for me, like, my workload editorially was really crazy in March, like the onset of it, and even leading up to it, it was like I was just slammed. And then, you know, things got more crazy, and then suddenly there were like longer conversations with editors about safety, and then the shoots kind of just started dwindling a little bit, which made sense to me. I mean, you know, there was just a lot going on, like between COVID and the political unrest, but then the, you know, protests started happening, and um, yeah, it's been wild, but for the most part, I've been staying inside, kind of watching from the front door. But yeah, lots of energy. It's definitely the epicenter of things in Seattle, so it's been an interesting time being just in the center of it.
Yeah, well, what was interesting about that article is that it focused on the food that was available in the autonomous zone. So can you explain why food became a focal point for that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, people are struggling through all of this with food insecurity, and so I think the goal there was to just kind of provide resources for people who were, you know, unable to put food on the table. So most things within the zone were free. I think all the things. I mean, you could buy hot dogs there. I don't know if those are free, but like even Ben and Jerry's was there giving out free ice cream, which was interesting. And Um, yeah, it was a whole thing. And there's a like kind of an agricultural bent too, over at the end of the park. Lots of folks are going there and setting up farms and growing, squash and whatnot. So, um, yeah.
It was interesting in the article, they said one of the concerns almost was that it would become too commercial of a thing. So it's interesting to hear about like Ben and Jerry's being there.
Yeah. I mean, they've been active politically, I think. They've made statements about, Black Lives Matter, and even predating that, I think, I don't know if this was like a joke flavor, but they had a Bernie flavor, I think. Sounded delicious. Never got to try it if it was real.
Uh, I like the Americone Dream. I think
Yeah.
it's one of the like late night broadcasters flavors. It's my favorite. So speaking of COVID, you shot a piece about coronavirus in Seattle for the New York Times, which was one of the first hotspots. So what was that like, getting involved in that?
Yeah. So there was a bit I shot for the Times at the end of January, and I think this was when things were ramping up in China. I mean, they had been, but like I think there was still this notion that like it wasn't gonna really hit America in the same way. So I actually went to Everett. I think it was in Everett or around there where they first kind of isolated um, a man who was displaying symptoms similar to it. So I shot that, and even weeks after that point, it just kind of seemed like, well, I don't know. It always kind of felt like a ticking time bomb to me based on the information I was getting. But then it happened, and yeah, the shoots were just. I mean, I personally, I didn't have too many. I mean, there are a lot of reservations people have about going into these shoots for sure. But I was, willing with all the right protective gear, and um, yeah, the shoots were just yeah. They were just coming in kind of left and right at a certain point, and I guess I just like did what I thought I had to do, which is go out and do it, chronicle these things. But yeah, like from Bloomberg covering kind of the business aspect of it and how COVID's impacting small businesses and big businesses too, and restaurant owners. And then, the Times, I shot a story about like kind of mental health and how people are coping amidst all of it. It just felt very multifaceted, and it's a freaking crazy time.
What is, for a photographer, the climate like in Seattle? I've heard a lot of different things from our photographers, ranging from it, and this is over the time span of from when it was first setting into now. But people were talking about it feeling awkward, even going out and shooting portraits from yards in certain places. So, how tense was it as a photographer in Seattle?
Yeah, when I first was, I recall shooting a story, and my editors were telling me, do not go inside. Like, if you feel pressured to go inside, just don't. And I, went to the home of one person I was supposed to photograph, and she was just like, come in immediately. And I was like, ooh, let's go outside. uh, but if I like was just like, if my mind slipped for a second, I would have been right through that door. It's like at the beginning, it was crazy because like, we weren't used to it yet. I think people are getting more used to it now, but a lot of people still, maybe it's like when you walk out the door to walk your dog. Um, Sometimes I forget to bring a mask. So I live in Capitol Hill. You walk out the door, there's any given number of people walking up and down, exercising, or like, walking their dogs or kids or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone I photographed has been pretty cool, and they kind of understand the gravity of the situation, and they've taken it seriously, which is good. A lot of the folks I photographed are healthcare professionals, so that's been interesting too, kind of getting their take on everything happening and how things are working within the hospital systems, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you said that the New York Times piece, I believe, evolved into a piece with the Bush School, and
Yeah.
some of their alumni. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there were two healthcare professionals who had graduated from the Bush School decades ago. I don't know exactly when, but for their alumni magazine, they were looking for a portrait of Percy, their headmaster. So I was able to provide an outtake for them, and then they kind of decided they wanted a couple other folks photographed, and if I would be open to kind of doing a front porch session with them, which basically entailed kind of shooting these folks from like the parking lot or like the front by the door with signage kind of thing. So um, yeah, for the most part, all these portrait shoots have kind of been limited to about 30 minutes max, just to decrease any kind of exposure, which I think is a good place to start. I had a shoot with Adweek. When was it? It was well into COVID, but my editor Casey Burdett was amazing, and she had kind of a groundwork of how she thought would best be to approach these shoots in terms of safety. So 6 feet apart, PPE, no more than 30 minutes, telephoto lenses, kind of all the basics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, and you just moved, right? So you and your partner did that during COVID, I'm thinking?
Yeah, we just moved upstairs. So we when we first moved in, it was a sublet because about like 2 years ago, he's a touring musician, and when he's not doing that, which he's clearly not doing right now, he works at a cafe managing operations there. But yeah, we moved in originally as a sublet, and then that kind of turned into a longer term month-to-month situation in a different unit. And then we had this opportunity to move upstairs. So we seized it. It's pretty great. Like really good natural light, little patio, and like slightest view of the Space Needle. So that's kind of fun.
Cool. Have you ever
Yeah,
been to the Space Needle?
yeah. I had to photograph it.
Is that like something that everyone from Seattle does?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know. The two times I've been up it were on assignment. So the first time was like this event thing that I photographed. I don't know, like 8 years ago. I don't really do events anymore, but back when I did that. And then a couple years ago, I shot. They unveiled this glass floor that you could like look down through, and I photographed that for the not the Verge. It was Curved. It was their like real estate kind of vertical. So yeah, it's a pretty epic view, but there are definitely other advantages that are maybe less spendy. So
Hmm. And you guys are trying to figure out like your office situation because you figure that working from home is going to be going on for a while. What are your expectations of that?
yeah, I recently got a desktop, which like I don't know. I feel like talking to my colleagues and my friends, a lot of people surprisingly don't have that. They just like work from their laptops, like me. I started out shooting a lot of music festivals, and so that kind of portability was important for me. But now that like we're stationary a lot of the time, I thought it might be wise to invest in like a actual monitor and have that situation. So it's hard. I think a lot of people can probably relate to having a hard time just like with all these distractions in the home. So when you can kind of create an office, I feel like it's just better for productivity overall, and put the TV in another room.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Um, so we pretty much reached our 20-minute mark. Do you have anything you want to say to the people before we wrap it up?
Stay strong, y'all. Wear a mask. We'll get
Cool.
through this.
That resonates. That resonates. All right, cool. Thank you for doing this with us. Really appreciate it. It's been a good time.
It was great talking. Thank you, Will.
Nice to meet you and see everybody in 2 weeks when we do this again.
Bye.